funny thing, isn't it? The harder you try to hold on, the heavier life seems to become. You want to get ahead. You want to climb. You want to win. So you grip tighter. You clutch every coin, every moment, every opportunity. And yet, the tighter the fist, the less it seems to hold. It's like water in your hand. Keep it open, and it rests there peacefully. Close your fist, and it slips away. Most people don't see this. They live in a world of tension. They think effort is everything, and letting go is weakness. But strength is not in clinging. Sometimes it's in releasing. There's an old Taoist saying, "When I let go of who I am, I become what I might be." You may not fully understand it the first time you hear it, but sit with it. Let it sink in. It means that the identity you clutch so tightly, the image, the pride, the story you tell yourself about who you are, may actually be the very chain that keeps you from becoming more. Look at your own life. You've had moments when you fought hard to control everything, the plan, the people, the outcome. And yet, despite all your effort, things did not go the way you wanted. You suffered, not only because life turned against you, but because you refused to loosen your grip. I've lived long enough to see this pattern repeat. A young man chasing wealth, obsessed with proving himself. He holds on to every job, even the ones that crush him. He refuses to walk away from relationships that drain him because he fears being alone. He fills his home with things he doesn't need because he cannot bear the thought of missing out. And slowly, the very weight of his attachments breaks him. Letting go does not mean you stop caring. It does not mean you abandon responsibility. It means you learn the art of choosing where to place your strength. You cannot climb a mountain with your arms full of stones. To rise, you must empty your hands. Think of the seasons. The tree lets go of its leaves when autumn comes. It does not resist. It does not mourn. It trusts that new leaves will grow in spring. That cycle is life's quiet wisdom. But you hold on. You clutch at the past, at the mistakes, at the fears. You carry yesterday into tomorrow, and then you wonder why tomorrow feels so heavy. What if just once you allowed yourself to loosen your hold? What if you placed down what was never yours to control? What if you trusted that life has a rhythm greater than your plans? This is the beginning of freedom, not the freedom of doing whatever you want, but the freedom of no longer being enslaved by your own grip. And maybe, if you sit with this truth long enough, you will see that letting go is not losing. It is gaining room to breathe. It is making space for something new to enter. It is stepping aside so life itself can move you forward. But I know the thought frightens you. To let go feels like falling. You fear that without control, everything will collapse. That fear is natural. Everyone feels it. What they don't realize is that the collapse was already happening, not from letting go, but from holding on too tightly. There's a strange kind of strength in surrender. The river does not break the rock by force, but by flowing around it, patiently, without resistance. You are not weaker for letting go. You are wiser. Sit with that thought tonight. Let it whisper to you. The path ahead is not always about more effort, more strain, more control. Sometimes it begins with the courage to release. You may not notice how much you are carrying until you finally set something down. That's the quiet truth. We adapt to our burdens. We walk with them so long they begin to feel natural, even necessary. But try to climb higher with them strapped to your back, and you will learn the cost. I once knew a man who wanted nothing more than to rise in his career. He was diligent, determined, always the first to arrive and the last to leave. But he carried too much. Not just work, but pride. Not just responsibility, but resentment. Every slight from a colleague, every word unspoken by his boss, every mistake he ever made, he carried them all as if they were proof he had to hold tighter, work harder, prove himself more. Years passed. His talent was real, but his spirit grew tired. Not because the work was impossible, but because he would not let go. Not of the need for recognition, not of the fear of being overlooked, not of the anger at being misunderstood. He was climbing the mountain, yes, but every step was chained to stones of his own making. One day, he lost the promotion he had been chasing. He felt crushed, humiliated, yet, strangely, something inside him loosened. For the first time in years, he said quietly to me, "Maybe I don't need to keep carrying all of this." And that was the turning point. Not the loss, but the release. We all have these stones, don't we? Your stone may not look like his. Yours may be the fear of failing, the desire to control how others see you, or the belief that without constant struggle you'll fall behind. But each of these is weight. Each makes the climb harder. Letting go does not mean abandoning the mountain. It means dropping the unnecessary weight so you can keep climbing. There is a difference, and that difference can change everything. Consider a simple truth. You cannot fill a cup that is already full. If you keep holding on to what no longer serves you, the grudges, the regrets, the rigid plans that no longer fit who you are, then there is no room for anything new. Life cannot pour fresh water into a vessel that refuses to be emptied. But when you let go, when you pour out even a little, something happens. You create space. And in that space, clarity comes. Creativity returns. Energy, once bound in tension, is released to move you forward. It feels counterintuitive. Everything in you screams to hold tighter, to double down, to control every detail.
But the paradox of progress is that sometimes the very act of releasing gives you the strength to advance. Think of the archer. To launch the arrow forward, he must first let go of the string. Without that release, there is no motion, no distance, no flight. The power is in the tension, yes, but it is only revealed in the letting go. The same is true of your life. The question is not only how much effort you can apply, but what you are willing to release. Which burden, which belief, which attachment no longer serves you? Which one keeps you from breathing fully, from walking freely, from climbing without exhaustion? And here's the secret few will tell you. When you let go, the world does not fall apart. More often than not, it begins to come together. You discover that the job you feared leaving makes room for a better path. The relationship you released teaches you to value yourself again. The image you abandoned frees you to live more authentically. It doesn't happen all at once. At first, it feels like loss. But in time, you see it for what it really is: release. And release is the beginning of renewal. So ask yourself gently, without judgment, what weight have you been carrying, convinced it was necessary, but which now only keeps you from rising higher? And are you willing, even just a little, to loosen your grip?
Strange, isn't it, how opportunity often arrives when you stop chasing it so desperately? It slips in quietly, like a guest who only enters when the room is uncluttered. But when your hands are full, when your mind is crowded with fear and your heart is chained to what you cannot release, there is no space for the new to enter. I think of a woman I once met. For years she clung to a position that drained her. The pay was steady, the title respectable, yet every morning she felt a heaviness in her chest. She told herself it was security, that letting go would be foolish, that she had too much to lose. But deep inside she knew the truth. Her hands were so tightly bound to that job she could not reach for anything else. Then, one day, the decision was made for her. The company restructured, and she was forced to leave. At first, she panicked. She felt as though the ground had collapsed beneath her feet. But in time, something unexpected happened. In the emptiness, she discovered space. Space to breathe. Space to imagine. Space to remember what she once loved but had forgotten. She began something new, not overnight, not without struggle, but with a freedom she had not tasted in years. Looking back, she said quietly, "Losing that job was the best gift life ever gave me." That is the irony. Sometimes the very thing we feared to lose is the barrier keeping us from what we need. A closed hand cannot receive. Only the hand that opens can welcome what is meant to arrive. You may know this feeling yourself. The moment you finally let go of trying to control someone else, your relationship softens. The moment you release your obsession with a perfect outcome, a better one appears on its own. The moment you stop grasping so hard at certainty, clarity begins to shine through. It is not magic. It is not luck. It is the natural rhythm of life. The Taoists call it Wu Wei, effortless action. It does not mean you sit idle. It means you stop fighting the current and you learn to flow with it. When you release your frantic grasp, the current carries you further than your straining arms ever could. But letting go requires trust. Trust that if one door closes, another can open. Trust that life does not end when your plan collapses. Trust that emptiness is not only a void, but also a beginning. You see, progress is not always about addition. Sometimes it is about subtraction. Not about gaining more, but about shedding what no longer belongs. Like the sculptor, who does not create by adding clay, but by carving away what does not belong until the form within is revealed. Ask yourself, what are you still holding that blocks the door in front of you? Is it an old story about who you are? Is it a fear that if you stop struggling you will fall behind? Or is it simply the comfort of the familiar, even when the familiar suffocates you? There are doors waiting for you, but they will not open to clenched fists. They open only to empty, willing hands. So perhaps the question is not, how much more can I carry? But rather, what must I set down in order to walk forward freely?
If you look closely, you will see that much of your struggle to hold on is rooted in one simple belief, that if you grip tightly enough, you can control what happens. But life has its own rhythm. It does not bend itself to your will, no matter how hard you try. You felt this before. You made the perfect plan, yet it unraveled. You prepared for every outcome, yet something unexpected arrived. You told yourself you were in control, but reality reminded you that control is, at best, an illusion. Still, you cling. Why? Because uncertainty feels unbearable. The human mind would rather grip a false sense of control than sit quietly with the unknown. And so you live in tension. You worry over what you cannot command. You chase after what you cannot hold. But here is the quiet truth. Letting go does not mean you give up. It means you release the fantasy that you ever had full control to begin with. You guide, you influence, you choose how you show up each day. But beyond that, life is larger than your grasp, and fighting this truth only leaves you weary. Consider the sailor. He cannot control the wind. No matter how fiercely he demands, the sky will not change its course for him. But he can set his sail. He can choose how to move with what is given. That is the wisdom of letting go. You release the illusion that the wind belongs to you, and you focus instead on how you will journey through it. When you let go of control, something surprising happens. Your mind softens, your breath deepens. The world does not shrink in chaos, it opens in possibility. You begin to see options you could not see before because your eyes were blinded by the strain of clinging. I have sat across from many who learned this only after being broken.
A father who tried to control his children until they pulled away from him. A leader who tried to control every outcome until his team crumbled. A man who tried to control life itself until illness reminded him he never could. Each one discovered, painfully yet mercifully, that peace began not in control, but in release. You may resist this truth. You may say, if I let go, everything will fall apart. But pause for a moment. Has everything not already been falling apart despite your grip? The things meant to stay will stay. The things meant to leave will leave. Your task is not to imprison life, but to walk with it. There is a soft strength in this surrender. It is not passivity. It is not indifference. It is the courage to face the storm without believing you can command the sky. It is the calm that comes when you stop fighting battles you cannot win and instead place your energy where it can truly matter. So, I ask you, what would it feel like to loosen your grip even just a little? To trust that you can walk through uncertainty without needing to master it? To see control not as a weapon to wield, but as a story you can finally put down. There, in that quiet release, you may find a peace deeper than victory, a peace not built on dominance, but on harmony with what is.
You may think holding on keeps you safe. You may believe that by clutching tighter, you are protecting what you have. But what you often overlook is the cost. And the cost is heavy. Every fear you refuse to release consumes energy. Every resentment you keep alive drains your spirit. Every plan you force, every outcome you demand takes something from you. Slowly, quietly, you grow weary. Not because life is cruel, but because you are carrying far more than you were meant to. I once met a man who lived with clenched fists. He held on to every argument from the past, every regret, every slight against him. He said it gave him strength, that remembering each wound kept him sharp. But I could see it in his eyes. The fire he thought he was keeping alive was in truth burning him from within. He did not notice the joy he missed. He did not hear the laughter of his children. He could not feel the peace of an evening breeze. His grip on the past blinded him to the present. That is the hidden cost of holding on. You lose what is here because your hands are too full of what is gone. Even ambition, when held too tightly, becomes a trap. You chase so fiercely after the future that you miss the step beneath your feet. You run so fast that you do not see the road bending. You tell yourself you are moving ahead, but really you are moving in circles, caught in the gravity of your own grasp. Growth requires space, just as a seed cannot sprout if it is never released from the hand. Your life cannot unfold if you refuse to loosen your grip. When you hold too tightly, you suffocate the very growth you are longing for. Think of the soil. It does not cling to the seed. It covers it, yes.
but it lets go. It allows. It gives room. And in that room, the miracle of life begins. But if the soil tried to hold the seed tightly, to keep it fixed, there would be no sprout, no tree, no harvest, only stagnation. And yet, how often do you do the same? You cling to who you used to be, to how things used to work, to the belief that without control you will lose everything. And in that clinging you smother your own becoming. The price of holding on is not always obvious. It doesn't shout. It doesn't strike suddenly. It whispers. It shows itself in the quiet exhaustion you feel each morning, in the constant tension in your chest, in the dullness of joy, the numbness of wonder, the restless nights where your mind will not stop turning. That is the weight of all you refuse to set down. But you do not notice because you are used to it. You call it life. You call it responsibility. You call it ambition. Yet deep down you know this isn't strength. It is fear dressed as strength. The irony is, what you think is protecting you is the very thing keeping you from freedom. The grip you believe is saving you is what drains you, blinds you, and holds you back. So, perhaps the question is not what more you should hold on to, but what you can finally release. And maybe, just maybe, the moment you let go is the moment you begin to rise.
It feels strange at first, doesn't it? To loosen your grip when every instinct tells you to hold tighter. To let go when the world insists that success belongs to those who never surrender. You've been taught that letting go is weakness, that to release is to lose, that if you are not always clutching, you will fall behind. But life has a way of teaching the opposite. Time and again, the strongest people I have met were not those who clung to everything. They were those who had the courage to release. Think of the tree in the storm. The rigid tree, refusing to bend, is the one that snaps. But the willow that sways, that gives way to the wind, survives. Flexibility is not weakness, it is resilience. The willingness to release resistance, to flow instead of fight, is what allows life to endure. And so it is with you. The paradox is that letting go does not make you fragile. It makes you strong in a deeper way. Strong not by force, but by harmony. Not by resistance, but by alignment. I once watched an old fisherman mend his nets. The sea had taken much from him over the years. Boats, catch, even friends. Yet he carried a calm strength. I asked him once how he endured so much loss. He smiled and said, "The sea gives and the sea takes. If I try to hold on to every wave, I will drown. But if I release, if I flow with it, the sea carries me." There was no bitterness in his voice, no trembling, only steadiness. That was his strength. You see, the real power of letting go is not in what you lose, but in what you gain. You gain clarity because your vision is no longer clouded by fear. You gain energy because you are no longer drained by battles you cannot win.
You gain freedom because you are no longer enslaved by the weight of your own grip. This is why so many wise traditions, Stoic, Taoist, Buddhist, all echo the same truth in their own way. They remind us that clinging leads to suffering, while release leads to peace. They knew the paradox long before we named it, that surrender is not defeat, it is mastery. Look at your own life. When have you truly grown stronger? Was it when you controlled everything perfectly? Or was it when life broke something open in you and you finally released what was never yours to keep? Strength often comes in the very moment you thought you were breaking, because in that moment, something within you let go. Do not mistake this for passivity. Letting go is not sitting idle. It is active. It is choosing not to waste your strength on what you cannot command, so you can give yourself fully to what you can. It is discipline, not neglect, courage, not cowardice. And when you see this clearly, something inside you shifts. You stop measuring strength by how tightly you hold on. You begin to measure it by how freely you can release. So perhaps the paradox is not a mystery after all. Perhaps it is simply the deeper rhythm of life. What you release will not diminish you. It will reveal you.
One of the heaviest burdens you carry is time itself. Not the hours or minutes, but the way you hold on to what has passed, and the way you cling to what has not yet come. The past weighs on your shoulders. The future pulls at your chest. And in between, the present slips away unnoticed. Think about it. How often do you relive the mistakes of yesterday, the words you should have said, the chances you missed, the moments that did not turn out the way you wanted? You carry them as if they were stones that must be hauled into tomorrow. And how often do you race into the future, trying to control what has not yet arrived? You plan, you worry, you imagine disasters that have not happened. You grip the future so tightly that you forget it does not yet exist. This clinging steals your life. It robs you of the only place you are truly alive, here, now. Letting go of the past does not mean forgetting. It means you stop dragging it forward. The scar may remain, but the wound does not need to stay open. The memory may linger, but it does not need to hold you hostage. You release the story so you can write a new one. And letting go of the future does not mean carelessness. It means you prepare wisely, but you do not live inside what has not yet unfolded. You let tomorrow come as tomorrow, not as today's burden. When you loosen your grip on both past and future, you discover something almost startling. Time slows down. The present, once a blur, becomes vivid. The colors sharpen. The sounds deepen. Life reveals itself, moment by moment, as if it had been waiting all along for you to simply arrive.
I remember sitting once with an old monk. His face was lined with years, yet his eyes carried a brightness I rarely saw in younger men. I asked him his secret. He said, "I do not chase after yesterday, and I do not chase after tomorrow. I let them both go. That is why I am alive today." Simple words, yet they carried the weight of a lifetime's wisdom. You may think that holding on to time gives you control, that remembering every failure will protect you, that obsessing over the future will prepare you, but it does not. It only blinds you to the gift that is here. What happens if you let go, even for a breath? You set down yesterday, you release tomorrow, and suddenly this moment, this very breath, is enough. You are not late, you are not behind, you are exactly where you are meant to be. There is power in this, because when you live fully in the present, you are not weakened by regret or fear. Your strength is gathered, undivided. You can act with clarity. You can respond with calm. You can endure with steadiness. Letting go of time is not easy. The past will call to you. The future will tempt you. But each time you release them, you reclaim a piece of yourself. You step out of the shadows of what was and the illusions of what may be, and you stand in the light of what is. And there, in that light, you will find something you have been searching for all along: peace that does not depend on yesterday, and courage that does not depend on tomorrow.
My friend, I want to leave you with an image. Imagine you are standing in front of a door. Behind that door lies the life you dream of. More freedom, more peace, more opportunities. But there is a catch. The handle only turns if your hands are free. Many people never open that door, not because they are weak, not because they are unlucky, but because their hands are too full of fears, full of regrets, full of things they refuse to put down. Letting go is not weakness. It is not giving up. It is the price of entry to a new chapter of life. When you release what is heavy, your steps become lighter. When you unclench your fists, you are able to receive. When you stop fighting battles that don't matter, you finally have the strength for the ones that do. So ask yourself gently, what am I holding on to that no longer serves me? What fear keeps me clinging when I should be walking forward? What door is waiting to open, if only I dare to let go? The surprising truth is this: letting go is not about losing. It is about making space for something greater. And the sooner you accept this truth, the sooner you will find that life is not about carrying more, but about carrying less and walking further.
Life has a gentle but firm way of teaching us, my friend. If we refuse to let go of what is heavy, life will keep giving us lessons. The same disappointments, the same struggles, the same closed doors. Not to punish us, but to guide us. Think about it.
How many times have you faced the same problem again and again? A relationship that doesn't work, a job that drains your spirit, a habit that quietly steals your strength. Life repeats the lesson until we learn it. And often the lesson is this: you cannot move forward if your hands are full of yesterday. The moment you let go, life responds. New people appear. Unexpected opportunities knock. A sense of peace replaces the old tension. It feels almost magical, but it isn't magic. It is simply the way life works when we stop holding on to what is already gone. So do not fear letting go. Fear holding on too long. Because while your hands cling to the past, the future cannot place its gifts in them.
My friend, letting go is not weakness. It is not giving up. It is not failure. Letting go is strength. It is wisdom. It is the quiet courage to say, "This no longer serves me. I am ready for something better." When you release what is heavy, you rise higher. When you open your hands, you are free to receive. When you stop forcing what is not meant for you, life can finally guide you toward what is. Remember this: the future is not built by holding on to the past. It is built by stepping forward, one clear step at a time, into what is waiting for you. So breathe deeply. Let go of what you cannot change. Carry with you only the lessons, not the weight. And then watch how much lighter the journey feels, and how much faster you move toward the life you were meant to live.